The last sliver of the sun had long ago melted beneath the horizon, leaving behind a canvas smeared with twilight blues and deep purples. A cool breeze, carrying the faint scent of damp earth and distant blooming jasmine, brushed against my face as I leaned back in the old wooden chair, eyes tracing the nascent sparkle of the stars above. Another day, another tireless cycle spun, threads of thought and action woven into the sprawling tapestry of my online journey. Yet, as the world hushed, a different kind of realization began to bloom in the quiet spaces of my mind, a truth that had been slowly, patiently taking root. In the relentless pursuit of online success, the frantic dash often yields less than the steady, intentional stride. True progress, I was learning, was not measured by the speed of the sprint, but by the rhythm of the unhurried heart. There was a time, not so long ago, when I believed the opposite with an almost religious fervor. The digital landscape, I thought, demanded a ceaseless, breakneck pace. Every new trend felt like a missed opportunity if not immediately pounced upon. Every fleeting surge of content felt like a command to churn out more, faster, louder. My days then were a blur of notifications, a frantic dance between open tabs, a constant internal clamor to keep up, catch up, and somehow miraculously get ahead. I remember the late nights, the glow of the screen etching itself onto my weary eyes, the coffee turning bitter in the mug beside me. My fingers would fly across the keyboard, words spilling out in a hurried torrent, edits made on the fly, content pushed live with a sigh of exhausted relief, only to immediately scan for the next thing to conquer. That period was characterized by a pervasive hum of anxiety, a constant whisper that I wasn't doing enough, moving fast enough, being enough. The irony was palpable. In my desperate attempt to get more stuff done, I often found myself feeling profoundly unproductive. The tasks blurred into a single overwhelming mass. Ideas, once vibrant and promising, would wither under the pressure of immediate execution. Creativity felt like a fleeting muse, constantly running ahead of my frantic pace, never quite catching up to where I was. I would finish a project, a video, a piece of writing, and instead of a deep sense of accomplishment, there was often just a hollow ache, a lingering question of quality, a faint sense of what next, before the inevitable plunge back into the digital fray. The very notion of awesome felt distant, a shimmering mirage on the horizon of an endless desert sprint. My free days, if they even materialized, were less about rest and more about recovery from the previous week's self-imposed torment, often still haunted by the ghost of undone tasks. The universe, in its infinite wisdom, has a way of nudging us towards uncomfortable truths, often through the gentle persuasion of utter exhaustion. For me, the turning point wasn't a sudden, cataclysmic event, but a slow, persistent erosion of joy. The things I once loved about creating online, the thrill of bringing an idea to life, the satisfaction of connecting with others, the sheer wonder of building something from nothing, began to feel like obligations, chained to a relentless digital treadmill. One particularly overwhelming evening, after staring at a blank screen for hours, mind utterly barren despite the urgent deadline looming, I simply stopped. The cursor blinked, mocking my inertia. I pushed away from my desk, not in anger, but in a profound weariness that settled deep in my bones. I walked to the window, watching the streetlights illuminate the quiet neighborhood, and for the first time in what felt like ages, I allowed my mind to simply be. In that stillness, a quiet, almost inaudible whisper arose. "This isn't working." That whisper grew into a steady hum, then a clear thought. The problem wasn't the amount of work, but the approach. I realized I was confusing activity with progress, speed with momentum. The epiphany was deceptively simple. True progress often comes from steady, intentional effort, not frantic pace. It wasn't about doing more, but about doing what truly mattered, with a deeper level of presence and purpose. This was the nascent stirring of what I'd come to call my awesome way. The shift began subtly, a series of small, deliberate rebellions against the culture of ceaseless grind. It started with pauses, not just coffee breaks, but intentional moments throughout the day to step away, breathe, and reset. I began to build in free days, not as a luxury, but as a critical component of my strategy. Non-negotiable pockets of time to recharge, to live, to simply exist beyond the glow of a screen. I started treating my energy like a finite resource, not an endless wellspring to be drained. This new philosophy translated into a profound change in my work habits. Instead of chasing every trending topic, I began to focus on one core idea at a time, allowing it to fully germinate, taking the time to truly understand its contours before attempting to bring it to life. My videos became less about rapid-fire information dumps and more about thoughtful explorations, allowing space for reflection and nuance. I discovered the profound power of deep work, carving out uninterrupted blocks of time for truly focused creation, shutting out distractions, and allowing ideas to unfold organically. It wasn't about extending the workday, but about maximizing the quality of the time I spent working. The immediate effect was almost paradoxical. I felt less rushed, yet accomplished more. The quality of my output improved, not because I was spending more hours, but because those hours were imbued with intention. The anxiety that had been a constant companion began to recede, replaced by a sense of calm clarity. Decisions felt less like desperate reactions and more like measured steps. This wasn't about slowing down to a halt. It was about finding a sustainable rhythm, like a strong current, rather than a turbulent whitewater cascade. This intentionality began to foster a different kind of creativity, one that felt more deeply rooted and authentic. Ideas weren't forced. They emerged from moments of quiet reflection, from the space carved out by those diligently protected free days. My online endeavors started to feel less like a performance and more like an extension of who I truly was, a genuine exploration of my world, my thoughts, my lessons learned, shared with a burgeoning community that I hoped appreciated the authenticity over the artificial sheen of constant hustle. The content, now born from a place of peace rather than pressure, carried a different resonance. It was as if the unhurried effort infused each piece with a quiet strength, a depth that hurried work could never achieve. The satisfaction I now felt was qualitatively different. It wasn't the fleeting triumph of meeting a rushed deadline, but the deep contentment that comes from knowing you've given your best, that you've aligned your actions with your values. This was, I realized, the awesome way unfolding. It wasn't just about the money being made or the subscriber count growing. It was about the journey itself becoming intrinsically rewarding. It was about building something sustainable, something that nourished me as much as it did my audience. It was about proving to myself that success didn't demand the sacrifice of well-being, but was often enhanced by its presence. Looking up at the night sky now, the stars, ancient and unhurried, held court in their vast, silent expanse. Each point of light, a distant sun, burned with an unimaginable, consistent intensity, following an ancient, deliberate orbit. They weren't rushing. Their brilliance was a testament to patient, unwavering presence. It struck me that my journey, this mapping of my path towards online success, was much like the slow, purposeful dance of the cosmos. Each small, intentional effort was like a star finding its place, contributing its light to a larger, unfolding constellation. The future, like the distant galaxies, remained largely unknown, an intricate tapestry yet to be woven. But the overwhelming urge to grasp, to accelerate, to force the pace had diminished. It had been replaced by a quiet confidence, a trust in the process. I knew there would be challenges, unexpected detours, and moments when the old anxieties might try to resurface. But I also knew, with a certainty that settled deep in my bones, that the true momentum, the kind that endures and builds something truly meaningful, comes not from a frantic sprint, but from the steady, intentional beating of one's own internal drum. It's about finding that rhythm, honoring it, and trusting that the brilliance will emerge in its own time with an unhurried grace. The journey itself, in its patient unfolding, was the most awesome.